already with a crisis in their lives. Those particular individuals were raised by their grandparents or foster parents or uncle and aunt. And many of those particular youth were, had to get on what they put them on Ritalins to calm them down or to control their behavioral problems. So I think in answering that question, the crisis started in that particular beginning.
Wow, yeah, it was tough back then too.
And when you go back, it's all about, I used the terminology of perverted habits. But if you go back to those who are 70 and 80 years old, they gave us love.
Right.
So reason why we have a youth crisis, in my opinion, is a lack of love. Okay. Those who are 70 and 80 years old today, that we can contribute to being our kindergarten teacher, our first grade teacher, our third grade teacher. When we were coming up, we received a lot of love in the sense that 20 hours was put into our growth and development. Wow. They made sure that information was given to us spiritually, mentally, socially, and economically. And we was receiving a roundhouse of information to help us grow in those particular areas. And even if we didn't want to go to church, we was encouraged to go to church, go to Sunday school, hear the Word of God, and we learned it at an early age.
Yeah, it was in my upbringing, you know, old school, you know. Your parents always did instill in your head to have God in your heart. You know what I mean? And that was one of the key things coming up old school, you know. Like these days, you know, you cannot chastise your kids like you used to. You got the system inside, and they're controlling what you do to your own kids, bringing them up and everything. And I think that's a problem there too, as far as them coming up back then, you know.
And on that note, when you talk about spiritual growth in going to church, which is a good foundation in our lives, but also moral issues was learned in the home.
Right.
Right from wrong was learned in the home. So the parents was there, mother or father or grandmother, and also if you were my friend, your mother was my mother.
Oh yeah.
You had a community that was raising the human being.
Yeah, don't get caught doing that because
exactly.
Tell on you.
So today we're not receiving this. The youth are not receiving the same attention, meaning the love from the spiritual to the mental to the social and economical life. So from that we have a crisis. Right. When we went to school to learn. You learn discipline in the home. And so we have a lack of moral guidance in the home today when you talk about inner city and at-risk youth.
Yeah, you know, these days, you know, they don't understand the word honor thy mother and father no more like they used to, you know. Mm-hmm. You have golden rules and things, and they don't even do that because they're trying to get out the house at a young age and get out there with the drugs and stuff like that. I think that's a big turnaround. And they didn't have any, you know, more or less morals as far as wanting to learn how to do and how to fill out certain things in life, you know.
I look at it also, if I could add a little something, I look at it in another area too, Jerry, is that many of the youth that we talk about when we say a crisis, many of them are not receiving the same type of providership, if you want to say.
Right.
Our parents provided for us. When we woke up in the morning, there was milk in the icebox. There was cereal there.
Right.
There was eggs there. There was bread there. Mm-hmm. So when we look at today and we say, is there a crisis? Many of the youth parents, and I'm just real talk, Jerry, because I look at it every day. In the last 15 years, many of them sell their EBT card for half price.
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah.
Sell it to the EBT card. So if you get your EBT card on the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd and you're selling it to somebody for half price, well, how are you, the adult, going to eat, let alone the youth are in your household in which you're receiving that EBT card for?
Wow.
So the youth are not receiving, you know, the nourishment that they should be receiving because the parents have already sold the food stamp card for drugs.
What do you think caused our youth crisis in the first place?
Well, again, I think I touched on it just a little bit. I really think, Jerry, that
I mean, really,
I'm going to say, and it's argumentative, and there's a lot of different, you know, ways to answer that question. But seriously, from my point of view, I see on a daily basis is that we're not giving the parenthood. And I touched on it earlier. What caused the youth crisis is the cocaine.
Right.
When that came into the community, that cocaine produced that particular problem, and that's what caused the initial. If you go back, and we focus on education, but I think it's important right now that we get back to the basics, the basic fundamentals of being a human being.
Right. Yes.
There's many individuals that could not read or write, but they had common sense, and they knew how to raise a human being spiritually, mentally, socially, and economically.
Right.
And when I look at it, yes, our adults drank alcohol. Yes, there were marijuana in the 60s and 70s, but there was nothing as powerful that really touched our community, our women, and our youth today like cocaine. So when we look at them today, many of them are 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. That was because they came into God's creation in 86, 87, 88, 89, and 90. Also, I applaud, Jerry, and I'm sure you can agree. I applaud everyone that was able to obtain their AA, their BA, their master's degree, their PhD, that came from the civil rights movement that opened the door in the 60s. But many of the individuals have abandoned the inner city. Whether, when we look at California, whether we're talking about Oak Park or we're talking about Del Paso Heights, whether we're looking at other parts of California like Oakland, Sobrante Park, San Francisco, Hunters Point, Los Angeles, Watson, Compton, and South Central. So we live in the suburbs. Mm-hmm. We've evolved into the suburbs, but we're not coming back giving the time and the knowledge and energy that was instilled into us when we were growing up.
Yeah. Well, when we were coming up, we had to make sure we come from school, get our lessons done, or we can't go outside and play and stuff. These days, you don't have these things that are happening right now in a family's life. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, what they need to do with our kids and youth is teach them, again, how to fill out an application, how to, accept a job and get a resume going, and working computers. All of this is high-tech stuff that's coming up now. If you don't go with that, I think that they might, more or less be like dinosaurs. That's like ourselves. We're getting older in life and stuff, and we have to change with time. Computers are in our life right now. We need those computers to more or less take care of a lot of business that we take care of now these days. And you know how they're getting into computers now and changing things and learning how to get in there, disrupt what you're doing with the computers. So the youth, I think, need to know and have the information on how to fill out an application, how to get a resume going. You got kids, I'm sure, and I've already seen you with youth that you're working with college, kids that are coming volunteering their time to show these kids how to do these things in your business, what you're doing.
What I'm finding out, Jerry, in working with inner city youth, again, I think we have to know the truth to understand what is false or what is not correct. Our parents developed a relationship with us. What I mean by relationship, they made sure we knew that they were the providers.
Right.
They bought us our school clothes. They bought us your Sunday Easter suit.
Right.
If you lost your tooth, you put it under the bed, you tooth fairy. There was a relationship all the time ongoing in your growth and development. Today's youth, when we talk about crisis, today's youth don't have a relationship with their parents. There's not a relationship. They're not providing. So when in other words, use it as an example, like I mentioned. If a parent sells the food stamps, what kind of relationship is the youth going to have with the parent when there's no food there?
Right, I understand.
You see? So yeah. There's not a relationship. When you look at the inner city youth, especially those who are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, they are now, in reality, is figuring out how the way they can get a cannabis card to grow marijuana in order to raise money. When you talk about a crisis in the inner city, you take a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old, he or she is selling drugs and giving that 13 or 14 or 15-year-old youth $100 and say, go get your nails done or get a pedicure, because she's looking for a father figure. He's providing for her what she doesn't have in the home, because maybe her father is dead, or maybe her father is in prison.
Right.
And so she's looking for what? She's looking for security. So she's taken advantage of. That's why you see so many young girls pregnant at an early age, because they're being taken advantage of by 19 and 20-year-olds.
Do you think
in the community?
Yeah. Do you think a big part of that came behind the system, the police, they're getting into the life on how to upbring your kids? You know, like old school. You know, we used to be told something one time, and if you look mama wrong, she gonna slap you in your face. You know what I mean? And now, if you put a mark on your kid, if you go to school, if they see it at school, they're gonna turn you in, or they're gonna ask the kid, how did you get that on your body? I mean, anything. Kids, I think these days, if they really want to get out there in that life, they can create a situation to get out of the house. And I think that has a lot to do with what's going on now. You know, what do you think? I mean, I think that, you know, going out there, you're not 18 yet, but if you get out there in the street, you got that street life, you know, and now these days, kids, they're making hundreds of dollars, like you said, you know. Ain't no minimum wage thing. They're doing what they want to do.
I think you touched on it. I think you touched on it real good earlier, Jerry, when you was talking about how there was structure. You know, we grow through repetition. I mean, everything we learn through repetition. And so when a youth is not receiving guidance and mentorship from mom or dad or in the home, then everything becomes permissible. Okay, everything becomes permissible, and I think that is the problem. I wouldn't want to put blame on say, you know, different titles in the community, because there's good and bad in everything. But I will say this: we have a youth crisis, and those who are in retirement, it is necessary that you come out of retirement and give that love that was given to you by your mother, by your father, by your uncle, your aunt, because they gave a lot of time. And so the crisis is happening, in my opinion, is because we're not, meaning when I say we're not, those who received the love at a high quality, when you compare the two, because I can say, well, I can go back 40 years.
Right.
Well, if I go back 40 years, I can still be 20. I can go back 30 years. I'm still in my 30s. But a 30-year-old say, I can go back 30 years and they're at day one of their life. True. So those who are older must come back and give to those who need the guidance and the support. And if we don't, the crisis is going to spread. What do I mean? Here's a good example. I think it's important that we quarantine. You have to quarantine the problem.
Right.
Meaning those who already have the perverted mentality. They just made up in their minds, this is what I'm going to do. I don't care. It doesn't make a difference to me. I'm not listening to what nobody says. Well, that's that perverted mentality. But there's individuals, youth, that have perverted habits. They still feel remorse. They still feel guilt. They still feel shame. That individual young man can be, or young lady can be guided and directed. Also, with that information, Jerry, is that we have to be able to reach those individuals, youth that are 10, 11, 12, 13, that have not smoked their first cigarette, that has not taken their first marijuana, that has not had early sex, that have not got involved in gangs. If we don't get the positive information to those individuals, youth, before the negative information gets there, we've lost another generation already.
Right.
And we need to look at this very seriously, because those who are still 70 and 80 that is listening to the show, they have gone through recession and depression. They went through the 20s, they went through the 40s, they brought us in the world in the 50s. They've done their job. Yeah. And so it's now our turn to make a big sacrifice, Because if we don't make that sacrifice and reach those particular youth before the negative reaches them, it's over. And if we sit back, and I say this a lot, those who are 70 and 80, it's a blessing that they're here. Another 5 to 6 or 10 years, they're going to be gone.
Right.
And I also say that we're not eating today, because we eat a lot of fast foods. We're not eating today the same food that raised us.
That's true. That's
so
right.
if we're not eating the same food that raised us,
that's right,
then we're not going to be here as long as those who provided for us.
That's true.
So therefore, that generation that have really worked very hard to obtain their master's degree, if we don't, pretty soon they're going to be left with the problem, because we're going to be gone. So you're going to have those who are 70 and 80, and those who are 50 to 65 gone, and they're going to be left with the crisis.
That's true. Yeah. Well, your business on Martin Luther King. Can you give me the address?
It's 3960 Martin Luther King.
No Youth Left Behind.
No Youth Left Behind Foundation of America. And just recently, in the last 2 months, we established I.C.A.R.E Education of America. I.C.A.R.E stands for Inner City Arms Around Education. And so I'm asking individuals to look at your life and see where you can minimize, because we minimize things on the computer every day. You know, they minimize it. We need to minimize some of our activity and start giving more time back into the inner city.
That's what you're doing at your office. I mean, right now you got kids that come by there and they get on the computers and stuff, and you open that up and you're not charging them nothing. You know what I mean? You have them in there working and everything, getting them back in the habits of doing things and filling out applications and stuff. You're also working with the colleges and stuff. You've got volunteers coming in and doing things for the youth. Don't you have that going on right now?
Yes, Jerry, most definitely. And in the beginning, I started working with college students, because I saw early on that my generation, literally now, we don't have no time.
We don't have no role models.
Well, the time. In other words, we sleep 6 to 8 hours, we work 8 hours, and we commute 4 hours for the most part. So that's 20 hours. So when we come home, our generation, we pull off our shoes and get comfortable and do some more lab work and on the laptop and eat, watch the news, and we gone to sleep. Well, if they responded to the Rim fire that way, or they responded to the typhoon in the Philippines, or 9/11 or Katrina or Haiti that way, look what it would be.
Yeah, for sure.
See, the only reason, and I say this jokingly, but in the reality, the only reason why the animals are not around here chasing us right now, oh yeah, we would have a gun or we'd be shooting a bunch of them, but the only reason why they're not chasing us is because they have provision in their natural environment.
True.
If there was no food in their natural environment, they would be right down here hunting us. And we'd be running from them tigers and lions and all the different things, because they didn't come down because there's no provision.
Right.
So the knowledge of that is that poverty encourages or influences strongly bad habits. If you put somebody, I remember when the guys was down in the miners, the miners that was down there for 90 days,
right, 90 days,
they said that they was thinking the first person that went to sleep or died, they was going to eat that person. That when they came out, they said, you know what?
Right.
We got so hungry that the first person that died, we was going to eat that person, because they was going to live, survive.
Yeah.
So our youth need jobs.
Right.
But before you can get jobs, we have to do what? We have to. A lot of them can't read, Jerry.
You got to educate them.
They can't read. So if you can't read, that means you can't spell.
That's true.
If you can't spell, that means you can't write.
That's right. That's why I'm thinking that.
So you got to go back to the basic fundamentals.
That's what you're doing. That's what I'm saying. That's why I admire you and what you're doing. And a lot of people really don't know what you're doing and what you sacrifice. How many years have you been involved in No Youth Left Behind?
Well, it's been, No Youth Left Behind was established in 2008, but in the beginning, in 2002, is when I established another program called BLISS, B-L-I-S-S, BLISS Youth Programs, which evolved into No Youth Left Behind in 2008. And that's when it started at Consumnes River College. Francisco Rodriguez was the president there then, and Rich Shintaku, who's now at UC Davis, Dean of Graduate Studies. So with the help of college students, we were able to put this program together. And we started with tutoring, focusing on the issues where a youth needed help in, regardless whatever subject it was.
Right.
So it's been a total of 15 years.
Wow, yeah, you've really done a great job. People really don't realize what you've been doing and what you're doing right now to this day. That's why I wanted to bring you on to let people know that there are people here that they are hidden heroes, I call them, you know, and this is a Sure Thing talk show. So this is what's going on right now in life, and I admire you and I really commend you on what you've done in your life and how you've given up your time to try to get this youth going back, to have them know that there's somebody somewhere they can go to and do some things, you know what I mean? We need to have more people involved in what you are talking about. A lot of us, we talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. You know, a lot of us don't have the knowledge, and how can we get this knowledge? We hope that what we're doing right now, putting out knowledge out here on this worldwide network, people that are listening to us right now, we want to let them know that, hey, this is a communication channel and you can get all the information that you need on whatever subject that we have here, you know, and it's real. It ain't about nothing negative. It's all about real talk. You know, it's old school. If we had the old school concept, then it would be happening because everybody would eat, everybody would more or less, you know, make sure they graduated, make sure they got that diploma. That's one thing that was instilled in your head. Get that piece of paper.
You know, Jerry, one thing when I kind of put it all in just one statement, our parents and grandparents, out of all the information that they gave to us, they instilled in us to love God more than you more than you love creation.
Right.
See, when you let the creation get on the top and God at the bottom, then you have a crisis.
You got that right.
And who is it going to affect? It's going to affect the youth because the youth are under the adult leadership.
Yes.
See?
Yes.
So the first thing is to get things in order. And that's what they really instilled in us, you know. And then when you have God on the top, then you know how to love you, and then you know how to love your neighbor. You know, today, we don't even know our neighbors. We so far, literally, I mean, that's serious though, Jerry. When you look at that, we have gotten so far because of materialism and technology. Because of materialism and technology, we don't even know our neighbor. We know what car they drive, but there's no socialization. You can't have a community without unity, and you can't have unity without community. It's just it doesn't play right. So when you look back, there was unity in the community.
Yes, it was.
You knew Mrs. Brown, you knew Mrs. Jones. She knew that it was unity in the community. See, but there's no unity.
Right.
Everybody's into self, and when you get into self, that means you have gotten far, far away from your human nature, because it's about joining together. And so the youth are looking at the adults have separated and divided to the point where they're neglected. Okay. And we talk about why there's a youth crisis. Okay. I applaud the parent that now is a doctor or a lawyer or a judge or any other profession. And he's sending his daughter to school to go to Yale or Harvard or, you know, paying for the tuition so that they could go there to learn.
Right.
That's a great thing. But you don't isolate. You see what I'm saying? When you isolate, it causes the crisis that needs attention to be so neglected to where is it what? It just spreads. It's like a virus. We can take Sacramento, and I put everybody to the test. If you, even in your own city, you listeners, you can go down the street and you stop at a stop sign, and even though you're in the suburbs, if there's a youth beside you, they're listening to the same hip-hop music and other music, negative music, that they're listening to in the inner city. So even though they're personally not in the environment, they're still affected by the information. Right. So the information is spreading because why? It's not being contained.
I know for a fact that, you know, now in the music industry, you know, when the rap and all the way that they try to bring music back, and they don't have that knowledge no more. People don't have the education that we had back then, writing music. Marvin Gaye back in that time, you know, so the youth are pertaining to the rap, and they usually use the music to get their message over to their negative part of whatever on this gang relationship thing, you know. That's why when you have rap, you have all this going on in this world, you know, the negative, they calling the women, the bees, and all this negativity and stuff. That's why right now, old school is coming back slowly but surely, because we know how to write, we know how to read, we know how to play, and we have things that coming from our heart. You understand? I mean, people, they listen to things and try to put music out there in this world now, and all they're doing is listening to poems, and all they're doing is just coming up to the microphone and just rapping. They don't have no idea on what's going on. They're just trying to put a message out there that's negative, and they're trying to make sure they make enough money, and they're doing it. The industry out there, they're looking for this type of stuff to communicate with the kids that are coming out now, and they're relating to this type of stuff, you know. And it's negativity on this rap thing, you know. I don't think that they mean to do anything but to communicate with each other, but the way they're communicating is very negative. You know, it's very negative, and they're putting the negative and the wrong things out there, you know. I think that what you're doing at your building over there, you have pianos over there, you have opportunities for kids to learn how to play the piano, how to act, and how to, you know, do certain things. I think that that's a place for them to go to do something. They don't have anywhere to go. Where can they go, you know? You have to set a spot, make sure that they know what's going on, you know. In this community, in Sacramento, they look for something to do. They look for people to look up to, you know. Yourself, you're doing a great job in what you're doing. You're not asking nobody for nothing. You know, all this money just come from your pocket, you know, and you have certain people that's helping you and things, but I think, and I know for a fact, I've seen what you've done, you know what I mean? And we need more role models like yourself to be involved. And since you're on this show, I want to let them know where you're located again on Martin Luther King. Give them your address, let them know to come and visit and see what's going on with you. And look what's on-hand experience, what's going on at your spot.
Well, I'd like to invite all the listeners to go to I.C.A.R.E, I.C.A.R.E.education.org. I.C.A.R.E.education.org. And on the website, you will be able to see what we're doing. We're located on 3960 Martin Luther King, right on the corner of 15th Avenue and Martin Luther King.
From Christian Brothers.
Yes, yeah. Right down from Christian Brothers. But you know, we have a law that we're not enforcing, and I think we need to enforce that law. I know that light is stronger than darkness, and I know that right is more stronger than wrong. Indecent exposure. I think it's wrong and it's indecent for our young men to walk around with their pants below their behind.
Oh, please.
I don't think that if you're raising a daughter and you're out in the restaurant or you're out in the community, that they should have to look at another person's behind.
Yes.
I think we need to enforce that. If you're out with your wife, or I think that she shouldn't have to look at somebody's behind. I think that as Americans, as human beings, we should make that indecent, you know, to walk around showing your behind. And now we become permissible with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of the crisis, to allow things to go unchecked. In other words, when we were growing up, and we walked around like that, that would not be, we would be checked. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, and I say that because I remember when we was children, we hollered and screamed about pants being too big. Oh, and they would say, "Oh, you're gonna grow into them pants. You're gonna grow into them pants." We hollered about that.
Right, right.
I mean, that wasn't something that we wanted to do.
Right.
You know, so I think that, and this is serious. This is really serious, is because when you have an 8-year-old wanting to emulate what they see a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old doing, and we know it's wrong, they're learning wrong. You're losing another generation by saying that this is okay.
I understand that.
So where do you stop it?
Right.
Where do you stop it?
You know how they have code enforcement on your properties and cars and stuff like that? They need to have a code enforcement on public appearance.
Exactly.
You know
that is
Something
indecent.
like that, instead of saying, do you have any whelps from your mom hitting you or anything like that? It should look deeply into things where what's going on in the public's eye. You know, when you have kids that are dragging or whatever you call sagging, it should be something about if they're in the public doing that type of thing. It's very disrespectful.
It's indecent,
you know?
Jerry. It is. It's just indecent. It's not correct. And I'm pretty sure many of the people in the audience know it's not correct. And I think that we need to follow a rule that says when you see something wrong, change it with your hand. And our parents did that. And if you can't change it with your hand, change it with your mouth. Speak on it. And the weakest of response is at least feel something in your heart. At least you know something is not right. And so those of us who can change things, we need to rise and meet the challenge. We need to rise and meet the challenge. I think that is very, very important. I think that, and I want to say one more thing, Jerry. No one right now can wave the victory flag that we have done enough. You know, I look at, there's a lot of individuals throughout America that are striving hard to change their community, and I applaud them. You know, and I feel happy to be among those who are striving. But today, our greatest leaders right now throughout America is our pastors. Amen. We hold the greatest responsibility, greater than the President of the United States, because the pastors are saying, I'm accountable to God. Amen. And so we hold the strongest position to make the greatest difference, because the members are following the lead of the pastors. Right. And so we have the greatest responsibility.
Yes, we do.
And so I think it's not the people. We have to look at the leadership. Amen. Across America. And we need to join. We need to join together and focus on, just like they come together to pass the budget, and they don't come out of there until that budget is passed.
Right.
I think that we need to come together, and we need to fast, we need to pray, and we come out of there until we have a solution and a direction that we're all going to move towards to solve the crisis, because it can't be done without what? Unity. It's not on one human being's shoulders. We all have a responsibility. That's true. The pastors, the members, the communities, the teachers, the doctors, the lawyers, you see what I'm saying? The athletes, the entertainers, all human beings in America has a responsibility. And that's what the challenge is right now. And our youth, I believe, from what I'm seeing, is that they're crying out, asking us to close the gap from all of our differences, close the gap of all our differences, and come and help us.
From what I'm seeing with you, we are getting some answers to what we need in this crisis and stuff. You know,
thank you, John.
We got a lot of people that are very interested in what you're doing, and that's why I want to bring you back on Sure Thing Talks. And we'll be back with you next week, next month, with the show Sure Thing Talks. And Dr. Cook, thank you very much for coming on. And we hope everybody understand that we're trying to get our kids together and bringing up our kids and making sure they do the right thing in life. Again, give me your address on your...
It's 3960 Martin Luther King. It's on the corner of 15th Avenue and Martin Luther King. And the website is I.C.A.R.E.education.org. I.C.A.R.E.education.org.
Thank you, Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much. All right. That's another Sure Thing Talks. And please come back every Wednesday, every other Wednesday, and we'll have another show for you and having somebody with a sure thing. Okay? Thank you very much.